Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and welcome to Organizational Behavior, Chapter 12. We'll be talking about communication. We'll start off with a general communication. Just talk about the normal communication model that we've all are used to, face-to-face communication, the different richness, the certain barriers to communication, communication competencies, different styles that people utilize, whether it's a face-to-face communication or online communication. What does bold mean when I do something online? Sources of nonverbal communication. That's one of the strengths. Most people communicate by words, but the majority of the communication is being transmitted, about 80 to 90%, depending on, for lack of better words, depending on the research data. Still a high number are looking at the nonverbal cues. If I say, hey, I think you're really looking good, and I, look up like this. Yeah, right. The words may say it, my action, my nonverbal cues basically don't reflect that or don't back up those words. And this is very important, whether you're a manager, whether you're in sales or marketing, but you have to be able to pick up on those cues. Those nonverbal cues is a good sense. People who do well communicating with individuals in any aspects, what they do, they pick up on those nonverbal cues. We pick up on nonverbal cues without realizing that those cues are being emitted, and then we're responding to them. All right, active listening. How do you listen? They always say, God gave you 2 ears, 1 mouth. So it means you're supposed to be listening more than you're talking. Easier said than do. I enjoy talking, but there are workshops, and there's after a while you could develop an understanding that when someone's talking to you, you can't be multitasking. You have to actively look at the individual. Don't stare at them in the face and freak them out, but you look at them and say, listening to them and try to understand. You could sometimes nod and say that. And remember, nodding in the U.S. means that you acknowledges and you are in agreement. Nodding from, let's say, from an Asian, let's say from a Japanese perspective, nodding, all that means is they heard you. They're not agreeing with you. They're just saying, yes, okay, go on, I've heard you, that statement. They're indifferent. Remember that. The nonverbal cues. We're picking up on nonverbal cues as American. We're in a very diverse, society. I teach at several different colleges, and you could see the diversity within the schools. So you have to look at what, as I grew up with, what I would look at certain nonverbal cues may mean something different to another culture. Okay, so you got to be careful of that. And then the last one, computerizing an information age. I know you've got baby boomers, myself. We have to adjust to all the smartphones, no smartphones, flip phones, all different types of technology. Technology is a tool. It is a tool that helps one become more effective and more efficient. It helps us manage our daily life. It is not a replacement for social interaction, even though that's where it's going a lot of times. Even now, the face-to-face an email means one thing. I can't really see the nonverbal cues unless I bold it or put a smiley face on there or something. But does the other person understand what that symbol means? With a nonverbal, I could usually pick up pretty well. What's going on in the communication arena, because the technology is advancing so much. My daughter works as a manager for I won't name the company, but she works for she's a sales manager, for lack of a better word, sales/marketing manager for a pretty good size organization. When her sales account representatives or managers, account managers, discuss business with business-to-business clients, even smaller clients, they no longer just want to talk on the telephone or email. They talk on the telephone. They use FaceTime. That's for if you have an Apple or a tablet, or they use Skype. So when they call in, you're on a video, a two-way conversation. So no longer if the customer's or someone's talking to you, you can, oh, geez, what about this person? Because they can't see me. You have to have the same facial expression, the same concern, the same values as you would in a face-to-face. Even though you don't see the person, you can't touch them, but you could see them. They're pretty close. And sometimes it may be a good thing that you can't touch them, right? A little further away. Okay, let's go into our process now. Remember, you're either taking me online, face-to-face, or what do you call it, a hybrid class, or you're in one of my workshops. And you'll always be supplied with the conceptual map. The conceptual map, I always give you the one or two tiers. You're to add more. The reason I want you to learn, and what I want you to learn is as you see it, you hear it, you write it, the more senses you utilize, the better or the higher probability you'll have that you'll take it from your short-term memory in your brain and move it over to your long-term, so when you need it, you can pull it back. What is communication? I'll go real quickly with the model, and I'll flip on here. And I have this on a larger size. Remember, you could always stop me during this thing, during the recording, fast forward me, turn off my voice if something's not working right, all right? Speaking of turning of voice, I was looking to see if my microphone was on. All right, so exchange of information between the sender and the receiver. I'm saying something, and you're receiving something. The inference of meaning between individuals involved. So if I'm looking at, here's the regular basic model, right? And if you already had that in high school or something, if not have it, you know the model. I'm the sender, is a person who's wanting to communicate information to message, no problem. I'm thinking what I want to tell you. The receiver, the person is going to take the information. All right. The encoding. The encoding process is when I'm talking to someone or talking to them, I have to use the vocab or the words or make sure I put in the right content that person who I'm encoding it, so the person who is decoding it understands my communication, what I'm trying to say. Okay, so translates the thoughts into code language that can be understood by others. Real easy. Selecting the medium. Which is the best medium? If you look at different richnesses of mediums, I'm looking at, for lack of better words, different richnesses of mediums. I am looking at, let me pause here for a second. All right. Selecting a medium, selecting a medium depends on the nature of the message and the intent of a purpose. The time you want the medium to be read, type of audience, proximity to the audience, complexity and problem. In a real short version, the best media is where I could see you, I could hear you, I could communicate to you, I pick up on my nonverbal cues, and I could adjust my message depending on what you're sending me and what I'm receiving. That's the best media. Nowadays, because of technology, we've dropped to do more email or even this kind of communication. It's better than reading for some. It's better than writing for some, because you have to read what I write. Even then I have to think what the other individual is going to interpret with the words I use. But it's a one-way communication. I'm only talking to you. You cannot provide me any kind of rebuttal or any kind of question. So this is more of a download. When I'm using Skype or some other two-way communication, little process. So the next one is face-to-face, the richest, and then it drops down. Email is probably the worst, because I don't know what the other person is thinking. I don't, that is where it's very important when you're encoding, that I understand the individual. How is he or she going to interpret that message that I sent through an email? Now, the decoding. I created, I thought about the person, I send it. I get the message, and a lot of times I would work with engineers. Engineers, for some strange reason, like to make everything bold, and you know what I mean, or they don't like to use when they write something, they don't start the sentence off with a capital. They keep everything out as a lowercase. To me, even though it's hard, it's why it's too hard for me to go from the upper to lowercase. I mean, you're only writing about an email or something like this. You're only writing maybe a paragraph, 2 paragraphs at most in an email. I mean, what the heck? You only got maybe 15, 20 sentences. Stop. If you're not that good of a typer, put it into the cap, because it's noise. When I'm looking at noise is something that distracts me from the intent of the message, because I see, either the person is stuttering, either the person has or is pausing too much, or is talking too quick. All that could be noise, or I have my tie mixed up. So you want to minimize the noise, and you want to make sure that the decoder gets the message the way you intended, and then he or she, if she doesn't, she could ask you the question back. And that's where the feedback comes. You remember, face-to-face, I get instant feedback. The next one is the phone. If I call someone else without the video, I can at least hear their tone, their expression, their voice. I don't see their face, but I can usually tell if someone's getting bored or someone's getting upset because their volume's going up. So, and it keeps them going down. And feedback allows me to know, did they receive the message properly, or do I have to readjust the message? And remember, noise is anything to interfere. If I always say, look gentlemen, and I have an audience that have men and women, the women are going to say, man, this chauvinist thing, individual. Because that's one thing, saying, okay, I'm always thinking of guys. The other thing, I'm sending a message to the women or the female audience, members of the audience, that this position is basically only for men, because I've never utilized a woman saying he or she. Be careful, because you send like a subliminal message indirectly through the nonverbal communication by the words that you utilize or the words that you're not using through your communication. That's the general model. And then we'll go on real quickly. This is an overview model as communication every day. Listen, talk, look what you say when you say to the person. How is he or she going to interpret? Remember, the written portion, very little. 80% is basically the nonverbal, my expression, my face, how I look at you, my space, everything else that we're going to talk about. Okay, so what are some barriers to communication? Excuse me. Now, if I'm looking at barriers, you got personal barriers, right? You know, you have any individual attribute that hinders communication. Variable skills in communicating effectively. Some are better communicators than others. It's the expression, the tone, variation, how information is processed and interpreted. That's mean how personal barrier. It may take me a little longer to understand what the person is saying, or make the big picture, get the big picture. That's why a lot of times if I'm doing any kind of formal presentation or even in a small meeting, try to give some kind of visual aids. Most people aren't auditory, they don't listen much. I mean, just a small percentage that they love lectures, only listen. Majority of individual are kinesthetics and or visual, a variety. All right, stereotyping and prejudice. I don't think you can understand because of your culture, your race, your age, big egos, poor listening skills, tendency to evaluate other messages, inability to listen with understanding, and nonverbal communication. Okay, what are some physical barriers? Time zones. I call somebody at a different time zone. Telephone line static. Distance from another person. Computer crashes. Office design. I can't hear them, or there's too much noise in the office. A lot of offices are becoming more of an open office, so we could have collaborative learning. Everyone can understand, but some people aren't used to how to filter out that noise. Okay. Semantic, what do you call barriers? Study of words. Problem in language and communication. I try to avoid jargon. Jargon works well within the organization. Outside the organization, they don't understand. When I would work with engineers, and I'm not an engineer by any means, I'm a construction person, I'm a management person, business marketing individual. But I work with engineers, so I understand that I have to, I understand their process. I mean, I know all the engineering, I know how to work the formula. I understand conceptual has to happen. When an engineer, going into a meeting with an engineer, and he or she is communicating about the engineering design and the process, they are assuming and talking to other engineers. A lot of the times they're talking to the project manager, they're talking to other individuals that don't have an engineer degree, so don't utilize it in that kind of a context that they won't understand. I came from ComEd, and explaining electricity is a hard thing because you can't see it. How does amps and voltage work? So you utilize pressure and pipes, something so an individual could see, even though it's understand visually, okay? And you got to be careful of the jargon, careful of the study words. English is kind of a unique language, because here's, let me give you an example. If I go to somebody, and that's why a lot of people who learn English, it has several meanings. It's not only English, other countries have several meanings depending in the contents that is said. And if I say, hey, you look hot, that can mean I'm sweating, or hot, I'm an attractive individual, male or female. So it depends how you put it in. So be careful about the semantics. And that's a barrier, because you're thinking they're taking one way. The other person only heard the one version. Hot means I'm good looking, and not hot, I'm hot, or vice versa. Okay? Now, communication competence. Ability to effectively use communication behaviors in a given content. Upward mobility. And I had an exercise, what is your business etiquette? When I'm talking to to everyone, my friends, I'm not talking as I would be talking to somebody, to an audience who are all PhDs, or an audience that's all college graduate. I don't water it down. I utilize the terms and the terminology, so when I'm talking to that person, I don't create noise or confusion. I make it simple, and I communicate so they could connect to me and they understand what I'm saying. So in the professional setting, how you talk, let's look in the digital, and I'll cover it real lightly. When you send instant messages, real brief words, you cannot do that in an email. An email should be grammatically correct, but a few errors, most people aren't going to be upset. For a reason, because a lot of times I get like 75 to 100 emails a day. I got to respond. I'm going quickly. I'm responding. I'm using, sometimes I'm using a Dragon voice software, so I don't have to do all the typing. It helps me, but it's dictating and it's translating. So I may make a few grammar errors, instead of you or your, or even if I'm typing. That's acceptable, not a whole bunch, because otherwise you can say this person can't write properly. That's acceptable in business because we look at that as a casual conversation. Sometimes in my forums, if you're taking me on an online class, casual conversation I'll allow a little bit. But it still has to be professional. Other than, like I said, other than you're sending a Facebook or a tweet to somebody else. So you have to be effective and be professional on that. Think about your audience and who is decoding it, and how do I communicate with that individual. And I adjust my style. Either I use more words or verbiage or concepts that group understand, where other ones I just use examples. Yeah, they may know it, but they don't know the labels that goes with the words I'm trying to explain. Okay, now different styles. If I'm looking at different styles of communication, assertive. Expressive, self-enhancing, but does not take advantage of other, pushing hard without attacking. This is still verbal, or even in your emails. You could come across a person who could come, oh, geez, what happened to this person? You came across very cold, very indifferent, or very assertive. Good eye contact, nonverbal, strong, steady, audible voice, nonverbal, facial expression. And sometimes, like I said, you could do it by the words you utilize when you're writing it. Okay, aggressiveness. You're taking advantage of others, glaring eye contact, looking at them straight in the eye, or moving closer to the, or leaning closer to the individual when I'm getting upset, or moving further away when I don't want to deal, or cross my hand. You're certainly not crossing the hand necessarily doesn't mean that I'm not going to listen. Some cultures, it's just a natural. To me, as I'm getting older, it's easier. I keep my hands together. If I don't have an arm where it shares what I'm going to do, maybe just like this. Doesn't mean I'm not being attentive. But look at the sign. I'm going, yeah, okay. What I mean? That one eye, nonverbal, won't hurt me, but this one here, or putting my face in you. Okay, now non-assertive ones are basic, timid, self-denying, and that could be an introvert or a person that's thinking, downward glances, I'm not looking at somebody else, or slump postures, or have you ever finish this lecture, or wringing of the hands, or weak or whiny voice. I don't know how my voice sounds. Sounds good to me. I'm stuck with it. Okay? And remember, and when I'm looking at the voice, make sure that you has, not a bland, my name is Dr. George. My name is Dr. George Mochocki. Welcome. Put a little pep into your talk. That's what people want to hear. Otherwise, you're going to drive. That's noise, or it's boring. You're going to put the person to sleep. Okay. Sources of nonverbal communication. Let me talk about the basic one. Messages sent out outside the written word and spoken. Body movement and gesture. Defensive. Folding one's arms, legs, and remembering body language is subjective. We pick up a lot of body language from other individuals indirectly. Over time, as you get older, you can pick up when your mate, your spouse, your mom, your dad, or some loved one or friends, or they get upset. You can see their body language change. They're tightening up or something. We picked up on that. Okay, what we forget as managers and professionals, we also emit a body language. I came from sales marketing. I had to emit a body language. Hey, talk to me. I'm a friendly person. That's the type of body language you want to emit. Yeah, but now if I'm doing a manager, my body language is more confident. I'm tight. Yes, sir. May I help you? A little different is because we play. Our body language should reflect our personalities. Don't mask if they're not, but be able to understand and utilize the body language. You adjust a little, tweak it a little, depending on the situation and the role that you're playing or you're trying to bring out. Okay, now touch. Remember, you're not supposed to touch anyone in the class. Women are more sensitive or more hugging on that. Guys, most guys won't touch. What we're finding out with management and everything else, a male and a female, you could touch someone that got in an accident, someone lost their spouse. So, oh, that's real good. No, it's okay. Make sure the hands are up here, not on the bottom. Up here where it's safe, on the shoulders. And that just gives you a hug. Not all the time. A certain situation. And then I have other, and I'm not picking on ladies or anything else. I have other female employees. They're too huggy. I mean, I don't mind a little hug. Yeah, I didn't see you for a while. Oh, the hug, kiss me. I don't have to get that close with my wife. All right? And so touch is one thing. And remember, certain people allow more touching. Other people, appropriate, not inappropriate. Appropriate touching. A hand, shake, a pat on the back. Those are all appropriate, not on the butt. Okay? All right. Now, facial expression. This is the biggest one. You have to look at your facial expressions. Smiling, warm, friendliness, friendship, frowning, dissatisfaction. Smile, does that mean the same for the same culture? Some people, they're just trained to be a little more, not smiling, to keep their emotions inside. Americans, we let our emotions go. Other one, if you're playing poker, you had that poker face. But some cultures, if I smile too much, they won't take me seriously. What's wrong with this person? He's always so happy. He must be something, because the culture doesn't accept that. So I have to kind of adjust to the culture and everything else as a manager and other individual. The best thing, be yourself, but don't overdo everything. Just find it in moderation. Eye contact, this is another one. What is eye contact in the U.S.? Strong, nonverbal cue. Western, you look, taught to look at the parents, look at the person in the eyes. Asian are taught to avoid eye contact with their parents as appear in order to show obedience and subversion. So when you have an Asian individual not looking me in the eye, and I'm a Western, I'm like, oh, geez, he must be lying. There must be something up there. That is just his or her culture. They're in the U.S., part of the whole transformation process, assimilation. I'm not saying to become like assimilate into the society, but to be acceptable and start providing nonverbal cues. You'll look at them in the eye, not stare them in the eye, and move around. Okay. And the other one, a practical tip: maintain good eye contact. Nod your head to convey listening, not agreement. Remember, I always find that. Smile to show interest. Lean forward to show you're interested. Use the tone of voice to match. Avoid eye contact. Practice avoiding eye contact, closing eyes, tense muscles, excessive yawning. Avoiding eye contact, but don't overstare me. You'll creep me out. All right. Excessive yawning, using body language to convey indecisiveness, talking too fast or too slow. Let me talk about this one. A lot of people, when I talk fast, and it's not that it's just I'm Polish. It's just my culture. We're always talking fast with our hands and everything else. Certain cultures, they want you to talk with your hands. You want to talk slower. That's why people look at these clips. It helps them a little bit easier. So, if I talk too fast, learn to slow down, pause a little bit. You just have to be aware of that. Now, some people may talk, people talking fast, they look at it that they're nervous. And that could be a thing, because that's one attribute. I look at it, somebody's talking fast. When I talk fast, I get excited. I'm emotional. I'm energized on that. I go, hey, I really like this. That's my emotion. This is great. I have enthusiasm. Where other people may just say that's nervousness. So you have to look at what he's selling, what he's doing or she's doing. Okay? The last one I didn't have in here is space. In the U.S., if you get some Asian countries, let's say someone from Japan or Thailand, because they're or India, for lack of a better word, 1.3 billion individuals in the country, in the cities, so they're closer together. They're used to having close contact space. In the U.S., we keep an arm space unless we go on the elevator. So how do I know I violated someone's contact space? If I get too close, they start moving backwards. And some people come closer because on how do I say, the Hispanics or Latinos, they're just more of a friendlier, closer environment. When you look at Holstein, he found out a lot of people more of a team-based culture. If you look at Asia, they're more friendlier, more closer to the individual. So be aware of the individual space. I want to be in their space, not in their face, because then we have the other thing with aggressiveness. Okay, active listening, again, appreciative, all right, listen for pleasure, entertainment. The other one, empathetic, interprets messages by focusing on emotions and body language. Comprehensive, organize specific thoughts and actions, integrates this action by focusing on relationships and idea. When you hit an that's when you should not have an just say pause in your mind. Pause, pause, pause. So if I go someplace, I pause, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm saying, okay, well, how do I adjust this real quick? Don't take an hour, because the other person, take some time and you do fine. Okay, now discerning. If I look at discerning is attempt to understand the main message and determine important points. Evaluate. You're constantly evaluating, because what he or she's telling me, whether it's a digital or this is more face-to-face, I'm adjusting by the nonverbal cues, and I can say, did I diffuse the situation, or am I making it worse? Am I saying something that's going to matter? How do I diffuse it? Those are good communication skills. Men and women, like it or not, women are more likely to share credit for success, ask questions tactfully, and give feedback. Men are more likely to boast, bluntly give feedback. Yeah, you're all right. You're good looking. Women, what did you do? More of a political, more of a gentle approach, but it's a little different. In the business world, we're trying to pick up the same nurturing, everything else for men, and women are trying, going for lack of better words, development, how to be a little bit more assertive. Okay, so there's two of us, so that takes care of that. Now, the last one we have, and almost done, I'm sorry it's going to be a little bit longer, multi-communication. Use of technology to participate in several interactions at all. I have a smartphone, and I'll try to sell one another, but what does my smartphone do? When I first got the smartphone, it was a big one. I take the smartphone on, I interact. I could do with the smartphone, I could tell my calendar, I could do everything else. I could talk to individuals at the same time. I could be watching the video if I want. I could make it different. I could take cameras. I could selfie someone. I could take pictures. I could do it live. You remember, all this is coming in with the communication. Someone writes something on the board. I have students come up to take a picture of it. It's clean, it's good. You don't have to take some of the notes, as long as the instructor doesn't erase the notes, okay? Now, internet. Internet is a use. Like it or not, internet is one of the biggest one, global network. Intranet means within the organization. So I have my own system. A lot of times when you're inside, you have a different communication means, different. Remember, I'm working within a company. I try to pick up what's the standard. When you're communicating to your boss or to a fellow colleagues using the internet or email, that email could be transmitted to other individuals, higher or lower. This is another form of communication. How you write it, how you present yourself. They never met you. They're looking at your written document and they're going, I like what that person's saying. But if you have too many grammar errors, too many spelling errors, too many short sentences or run-on sentences, if you're engineering or doing any kind of procedures, they're only like a paragraph. One sentence is just the way it works. But I mean, normally in an email, shouldn't be more. An email should be, or even in a form, should be at least 1 or 2 paragraphs or more. Over 2 paragraphs, you're making me read a book. Send me an attachment where I can print it out and read it in my own leisure, okay? But internet is within the organization. Extranet is it connects internal customers with selected suppliers. We could communicate. They don't have to always log in. They could do the ordering. It eliminates. It makes it effective. It makes it efficient for me for communication. Okay, email. Let's look at email. This is the biggest one here. Email benefits: reduce cost of distributing, increase teamwork, reduce paper costs, increase flexibility. Drawback: reduce cost of distribution information, increases teamwork, reduces paper costs. I must have recopied. What are the drawbacks of email? You don't have the relationship. I got the wrong one in here. I apologize. You don't have the. So that's kind of good. Let's talk about the drawbacks of email. I don't have any nonverbal communication. I don't know how the other person is going to read it. I don't know how the other person is going to decipher it. I'm not sure if the other person even read it. I'm not sure what they did. Is it too long? Is it too many errors? They won't come back to me. If they send me a feedback what did they mean? Did they understand it? If they I gave them 3 pages or a whole paragraph, and you go, yep, I agree. What does that tell me? Or if I would be faced, you go, yep, what do you mean? What part do you agree? So we go back and forth. Do I miss the email? Do I send something wrong to the email? Or do I send everyone in my division email? Now the drawbacks, everyone's reading emails I sent. Be selective what you send to team members, other members, because it goes out. Email is your paper document. When there's some kind of a lawsuit or any kind of action, they don't go into my inbox anymore. They recall my emails. I want you to be aware in the business world, if you delete your emails, all businesses have parallel systems that are recording all your actions. You could delete your heart out, but if we lose, just in case we lose the power or some kind of data breach or something else, they have another set, a different, what do you call it, a server, isolated, or a company that basically mirrors every stroke you have. So you can delete everything else. There's somebody else there that does some backup on that automatically. It's just part of the business. You know, video conferences, you can video the conference or talk live, just like something similar we're doing here. I mean, not live, just one way, but if we were doing Skype or what do you call it, FaceTime, you could do it. And there's programs that you get a video conference. You can be in a room and you have a speaker or a microphone, something like I'm using here to record. It's easier. I don't have to have it. I used to have it in the ear, but you can just have one to have it in the conference room, and everyone hears it, and you have the cameras, so it's as close as I can see, or you can zoom in, like a distant learning class. Okay, so we have that. Telepresence is advanced form of teleconferencing, requires special design rooms, video systems can reduce organizational travel expense, allow people across the world to participate, allow employees to speed up decision making. And there's also software for small businesses or large businesses. You could have this same kind of what do you call it, tool for leasing instead of buying it. A lot of companies have group support system, demonstrate using here it is, using computer software and hardware to help people work better together. Look at some of the support system. A lot of times you got to be careful. Within the company, if I have my ITs in another office, I says, yes, could I have your IP address for your workstation? They're rid of the company IT. I don't have a problem. So when I'm in there, all of a sudden the computer takes over. So he sees what issues I have. He doesn't have to come to my workstation to see. There are programs out there that will help you fix your computer, whatever issues. You pay for a service, and they'll ask you for the IP address, and they'll come in and they'll see what the issue is. You have to make sure that that provider has checks and balances, because you basically, in my computer or anyone's computer, smartphone, you have your banking account, you have a lot of information in there. Be careful when you turn over your IP address. That gives them, it's almost like you're an executive or you have a power of attorney. You could do anything in that computer. You assume they're ethical and they're only fixing the problem, but they could have anything. They could download without even me knowing it, right? You've got the cookies, and you got a lot of individuals that would download information. I don't see it on the screen because that's the way they program it, but the computer is being drained out. Be careful. Are we good? So I had that teleworking. A lot of people work at home, just like I do at home. My office, I'm recording here. In between, I'm very flexible. You have to have a different type of mindset. Those who take me online, you have to be determined. Every hour I do my online class, even though I can do it anytime. You keep on putting it off because you have a 24/7 open window, you're going to fall behind. Okay, that's it. So this one's a little bit longer, but communication, I think, is a very important aspect of business, important aspect of you getting that next promotion, important aspect of dealing with customers, important aspect of how I communicate with family, friends. But I'm talking this course here, a professional level, bring the customers back, bring my suppliers back, make sure the customers, my employees, everyone understands clearly what I'm saying. I'm not trying to impress them with words that they have no clue. If I'm talking to doctoral students, I expect them to know a conceptual higher. If I'm talking to construction people, not that there's a lot of construction people who have advanced degrees in case something would happen, but I have to understand the majority would want it real simple. When I talk to my clients, when I do some consulting, when I talk to the clients, they understand I got the doctors, they understand I have the knowledge. Bring it to me in a simplistic term. When my wife has some issues and the doctors explain it to me in medical terms, I go, "Ooh, time out, doc. I'm a business major. Tell it to me in simple terms. Your body's like this. Your veins collapse, like a hose collapse, and you're getting blood, blah, blah, blah." I understood that. I expected him to know The medical terms, give it to me in simplistic terms. So depend. Now he's talking about a doctor. He's not going to bring it in a hose with your main arteries. What happened if they collapse, or if they got blocked up? They're basically going to bring it in medical terms because they understand that. That's at the level that gives me professionalism. It gives me credibility and validates that I understand the other person knows the definition in the word. So we don't have. They're already in their mind. Words are just visual representation what I'm trying to tell somebody. Okay? So that's it. My name is Dr. George Mochocki. This session, and this is from an organizational behavior perspective. The same thing you would utilize thinking about if you're using for management. Same thing for HR, for marketing. I have to understand your organization or individual. Communication is an aspect that you need. Digital communication is the way we're going. But remember, utilize the new technology with the face, the Skype. As long as I could get more of the nonverbal in there, you have higher probability of convincing an individual, able to adjust your message to that individual instantly. An email, I got to wait till I get a response back. When I responded, did I miss it? Did I delete it? I know instantly that issue is resolved. Again, enjoying seeing you, and we'll see you in our next session. Thank you very much. Bye.